Sure. Thank you, Allan. So thank you everyone for being with us this morning. Very excited to have Allan taking the helm. Allan has presented me with a very comprehensive proposal for how he sees and envisions the business strategy and now business strategy and tactics forum contributing to really the overall value of membership for everyone. I think it's really exciting. It's a very challenging time for many businesses. I know some of you are very busy, some of you have pivoted, and right now we're looking forward to some form of reopening and being on the road to recovery. So very excited about this topic, and welcome, Allan. Take it away.
Great. And I think what we'll do is we'll start with chamber announcements and make sure we got all of that done. Megan, if you want to kind of prioritize the ones that you think are most important right now.
Sure. Kay, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. So we have some really good webinars coming up this week. Today we have two. We have Calm, Cool, and Invested with Vince Egan at 11 a.m. and at 2 p.m. we have Hot Off the Flashes with Dr. Lauren Kaplan. We also have two really great government-related webinars this Friday. We have a virtual town hall, county COVID crisis status report at 10 a.m. And at 12 p.m. we have a government affairs forum with Assemblyman DePhillips and Zwicker. So both of those should be really great. So please join us for those.
Cool. Great. Great. So one of the things that I have had conversations with a number of folks and welcome further input is how we make this work for everybody. And my thought is that we make this, when it was originally formed, it was called business strategy. And I think that's still valid, but I also think that we're going to be talking about tactics that we'll do from time to time to really make sure that we have given some good brainstorming to how members are absolutely implementing some of the strategies that we talk about throughout the year. We want to make this a roundtable. Initially, I chose the topic for today's forum, but at the end of this, toward the end of this, we're going to talk about, we want the participants to come up with the topics that are important to them, and then we will then prioritize those. And with each meeting, we want to have this in one of two formats. And when I say two different formats, I mean one meeting might be one way, another. We're starting off today as a roundtable, but if folks feel that they want to have a subject matter expert to talk about a subject to prompt additional discussions during the meeting, then we'll find the right person to present. And toward that end, we're also hoping that folks who have expertise in their particular area, that if they've got ideas that they can share during the forum as part of the discussions, we welcome that as well. One other thing that I think is really important is that I don't arbitrarily want us to come up with the topics. I want this to be a growing and meaningful discussion for all who join us. We want to limit this to only chamber members. This is not an open forum for that perspective. You just can't join on the fly. You have to register up in advance so that we know that you're there. And we're looking forward to an interchange with everybody, and so that it's not just a presentation. And I'm very fortunate to have a partner in crime in this, and that's going to be Greg Stewart, who he and I have known each other for a very long time now, and really share the same vision and thoughts regarding how we make this into something very successful for the chamber. So With that being said, our topic for today is for folks to share their preparations for reopening during COVID-19. Now, I know some folks are already open. That's fine. The real key to this is that how you're open may change, because when I say open, I'm talking about your establishment being open for visitors, employees, and customers. And the real key is, what preparations do you need to do in your firm to make that happen? So one of the other participants in our forum is a dentist by the name of Allan who owns Rauschberg Dental in Parsippany. Allan is not available to be on the call today because he opened yesterday. But what he did do is he shared with me his thoughts about what he had to do to reopen. And it's quite extensive. So I thought we would start out with just having him, I'll just share with you his thoughts, and then look forward to having other folks contribute to that. Now, the way we're going to do this in format is going to be that if somebody wants to contribute, raise your hand. Kaylee will be monitoring the chat and also the video, so that we can unmute you selectively to have you participate in this. The other key factor is Greg is also a co-host on this, and I welcome his participation at any point in the time to add his 2 cents, and sometimes more than 2 cents, to this conversation.
Okay. Allan, I'm gonna mute all, just as a
Great.
heads up. You won't be able to unmute yourselves, but just to keep this orderly, but again, just drop in chat, or if you're on video camera, I'm gonna try to get as many people in as possible. Raise your hand, I'll let Allan know, and we'll unmute you physically. So just hold on one moment while I do that. I unmuted you, Allan, so you're good to
Great,
go.
thanks. Okay, so this is these were what Allan had to do in order to get him his organization done. He's a multi-specialty dental practice. So when I say multi-specialty, what that means is that he not only does dental checkups and normal oral surgery, he also has folks on staff who do the orthodonture and some of the more sophisticated different dental procedures. So one of the things that, he gave me these particular observations that he had to do. At his front desk area, he had to have sneeze guards placed on the counters, and he put his logo on them. He's not going to have any coffee bars, snacks, or magazines. Patients are going to call the office from the parking lot. No one is in the waiting room. Patients will be required to wear a mask. And if they don't have one, they're going to be given one. They will also have their temperature taken. Anybody more than 100 degrees will not be seen. They're what he calls an operatorium. I guess that's the treatment rooms. We'll have everything in drawers. Staff and docs will be wearing surgical caps, gowns, masks, face shields, and booties. Medical grade purifiers with HEPA, carbon, and UVC filters strategically placed throughout the office. Aerosol fume extractors will be used in each room when we are causing an aerial spray. After each patient, and at the end of each day, we will use a ULV fogger with hydrochlorozone acid to disinfect the rooms in the office. Now, that's cost him a ton of money to reopen. There's no doubt in my mind, based upon what he's had to do. But those are the things he's had to do. But I know most of us are operating virtually. But the real key is that we don't necessarily want to operate virtually. And gradually, we're seeing things change as we reopen our offices or establishments or whatever they are. And what I want to kind of do here is talk about what other people are doing to make sure that they keep their employees safe, their customers safe, and any visitors they may have to the establishment, like delivery people and stuff like that. Just to give you another example, we have a client who dispatches fuel oil deliveries to commercial establishments. And he had his dispatchers in a common area. Now he's had to put up these plastic guards between the different workstations, even though they share the same workstation. And all of his delivery folks have to wear masks, even though they're delivering to construction sites, because the clients are requiring them to do that. So part of this is, if your employees are coming and going from your establishment, what preparations do you need to make for them so that they can go into the work areas that where they have to deliver services. So with those ideas in mind, I'd like to throw it open to other folks to share their observations, but also ask any questions they have about how that might impact their particular facility. I also believe that we have, if I remember, she was going to join us. Yep, Karen Stringer's on the line, and so is Lisa Fried-Groden. Both of them have spoken from a legal perspective on what they know you have to do legally to reopen. So we've got some subject matter experts here. I know Rich Hauser's dealing with issues related to how do we figure out how we're going to do all of the financial stuff associated with this. But so if you got a question that about how you're going to finance this kind of stuff, Rich may be able to answer those kinds of things.
Yeah, and Allan, there's three main things, and you touched on them all, that every business has to face, whether you're a remote business or a on-premise business. Beside your fact whether or not you're taking back your real estate, there's state rules, which are number one. Second place, which is what you were hitting with the doctor, is employee fears are a big issue with re-recruiting people to get them back to work and having them overcome it, as well as how do you overcome the fear of your clients. So you got the three fear factors that are working out there that have to be overcome to successfully re-engineer your business.
And I agree with that. I read an article not long ago which said that pandemics will end not necessarily because of a successful treatment or a vaccine. It may be because people no longer fear it. And so from a social perspective, that may be the most important overriding issue.
Well, and then in addition to that, I urge everybody, whichever township or town you may be in, reach out to your local folks too and engage them. I know, like up in Mount Olive, we've had a group together through the EDC and the township and the chamber to put together a opening support plan for the businesses and support them with waiving some local regulations in the interim to help them get restarted to overcome some of these hurdles. So I encourage everybody here to reach out to your local folks and to engage them, because I know, like I said, in Mount Olive, for the last 2 months, we've been working with our local businesses on how can they reopen successfully and what do they need from the township to help them.
I see Rich Hauser is raising his hand. Al, if you want me to unmute him.
Yeah, please do.
Wonderful. All right, Rich, try again.
Thank goodness, I thought Allan was going to say no. So
I voted, nobody overruled me.
so I have a question, both for my business as well as for our church. We are struggling with what are the rules, because what we're learning is that there's so many different guidelines and rules for opening, whether it's from your insurance carrier, from government, from different sources. And I'm wondering if anybody's aware, and I'm expecting those are going to continue to change over time as things evolve, but is there a source where you can go for the I don't know, best practices or whatever it is that that those of us should follow? And we're a bit, in my business, a luxury that we don't have to come back right away. And it's actually been noted in several places that accounting businesses are going to be one of the last to be able to come back into an office setting. But I'm just looking for some guidance because I'm hearing there's so many different places to get information and some of them are conflicted.
See, Lisa's raising her hand. Lisa, you have Allan, you want me to unmute her?
Please do.
All right. All right, Lisa.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So yeah, it can be confusing. There are a lot of different regulations, and unfortunately, we're not operating with a unified framework for everyone. So there's actually multiple levels of guidance that everyone needs to follow. Number one, if you're local or your local town and the state sets rules just generally for business, types of business, and any industry regulator that governs your industry could also be setting rules. OSHA has a general obligation for all employers to keep people safe from threats, and COVID-19 is a threat. And the CDC's got guidance for specific types of businesses and just general employers in general. So unfortunately, there is not one set of rules, but I've been speaking a lot about this and advising clients, and there are common themes that are flowing through all these regulations. So in terms of thinking about how to go back to work, some of the types of things that Allan was talking about that the dentist office is doing are the types of issues that are common. So you're going to need to assess whether or not people are symptomatic or they actually have it, how to keep them safe when they're there, social distancing, things of that nature, what to do when someone's exposed. So there's kind of this commonality, but depending on the type of business you're in, how high risk your business is considered, your exposure to the public, the degree in which you may need to do things is going to vary. And so it's going to sound self-serving because I'm a lawyer, but it's tough to figure this all out on your own without getting actual advice on what your business needs to do. And I just would say, be careful about flying by the seat of your pants right now. There's obviously a lot of consequences that can come from not knowing what all the requirements are.
Yeah, I'm curious, Greg, from your standpoint, as far as religious institutions, have you experienced stuff like that? Questions from churches in Mount Olive?
Very little on that. The biggest one, there's two ones that are both suing the state right now. One out of Caldwell and the one down in Somerville.
What I have heard is that many of them are, we know we have this discussion that Trump has had that he wants them to be considered essential services, but at the same time, I think that that's being mitigated by, the social distancing issues that many of the geographic areas have to worry about because of the spread. But one of the things that I've seen doing is that there's been two things that I've seen people do. Number one is they're limiting the number of congregants within the location, because as we know, that's opened up to, let's see, it's 10 internally, right? But some folks now in this weather have started doing services outside in their parking lots and all of this kind of stuff to get their congregants back, and a lot of Zoom stuff.
More is outside now is where they're driving just to go get around the state limitation.
So, as I look around who's on the call, any other thoughts from anybody on the call?
Oh,
Okay.
John Coleman.
Okay, John?
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm just curious, we've not reopened and we're not planning to reopen for some period of time. We're working virtually very effectively. The question I have is anybody engaged a daily sanitation company to come in and disinfect their space? And I'm wondering the cost that they've incurred with that. We have daily trash pickup, and once a week they vacuum. Suddenly we're going to have a cleaning crew come sanitize our entire space every day and allow people to work again. We just don't want to incur that cost if we can avoid it. And anybody have experience with it yet?
I know that actually in my condo complex, they employed a firm to come in and defog all of the buildings. So I can give you that name if you'd like.
I don't need a name. I was just kind of curious in terms of frequency and cost. You know, do they defog it one time, or are they going to do it once a week, every day?
Well,
on answering that question, it normally comes to the traffic volume that's coming in. And one of the things that I know 2 of the big service companies are providing are stickers to put on the door to say that, hey, it has been professionally cleaned, not by themselves, which is a big key to helping overcome the fear factor for getting clients to come back in.
And I think one of the things that when I look at Allan Rauschberg is that he may have acquired a fogger device that he uses rather than have a service come in. Now, I don't know if they want to go to that extent either, but the other stuff is what is appropriate. Maybe you don't have to do that, and maybe just ask people to disinfect their own workspaces so that they're comfortable.
Well, and part of it, and the big thing that's going on too is a re-engineering of the businesses to say, do I really need everybody in? So retail space is really hurting right now on a lot of not renewals, as well as re-engineering to say, I'm going to bring folks in on a weekly, monthly basis for team meetings, because you still need to do team building no matter what you do. Remote doesn't work for that. So an occasional bringing them in. So you still have to have that fear factor of them as well as the state regulations to overcome. So there's that balancing act that everybody has to face. And then as you move the folks in to come in to do your meetings or to meet up in a certain place. But retail, the business retail one is really getting whacked big time on redefining what they're renting out.
You know, part of this, John, too, is obviously there, as Lisa said, there are some issues related to government requirements. But in a business like yours, I don't know that they need to be as stringent. It's about what you feel, you know, what your employees feel is comfortable.
Until I get sued, then it's no longer my opinion.
Well, I mean, one of the things you can do is question each of the employees who come to the office. You can give them a checklist and say, okay, guys, I want you back in the office. Okay, these are the things that we're prepared to do. Is there anything else that's not on the list on an individual basis? And maybe you have to sign the document.
But Allan, you got to look at 2 things. You got to look at first the state requirements. He's got to fulfill those. And then you take that next step to say, what's it take for me and my team to feel comfortable? You got to overcome both of those steps.
Yeah. And I know, John, I know has to leave, but I know that Lisa and Karen have had to address these kinds of things. You have any further comments on that? Either one of you?
See Lisa's. There we go.
So most of the guidance that's come out so far does talk about, at least in terms of commonly touched surfaces that are shared, that they need to be cleaned daily. So doorknobs, copy machines, you know, all the places that people are congregating and touching that are not an individual workspace, there's most likely going to be a common requirement that those are cleaned daily. And they're supposed to be, you know, EPA type cleaning, approved cleaning solutions. But, you know, how you do that, you know, may not be that it has to be done by some expensive company. There may be, you know, a way for your office manager or someone like that to be dealing with those surfaces on a daily basis. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this giant expense. So, but I do think at least in terms of commonly touched surfaces, that there is going to be a requirement of daily cleaning.
I see Karen Stringer also has her hand raised, so I'm gonna mute her too.
Hi, Karen.
Oh, hold on, there we go.
Got it. Thanks. Yeah, and just to kind of echo what Lisa's saying, I completely agree with her that I've seen that same guidance in terms of possibly daily cleaning, and that what you use to clean, it does have to be EPA approved and something that's been approved to actually disinfect COVID-19. You have to be careful there because some cleaning agents say that they do that, but they don't really. So you do have to be careful on that. There is guidance on what it needs to be done. The other thing is in terms of commonly touched areas, some things you can't avoid, like copy machines. If you're in an office and you have copy machines, you can't say not to use it. But there are also suggestions that common areas, kitchens or conference rooms, that perhaps when you go back, those don't be used right away. And obviously you're gonna have to take cleaning, you know, far more seriously and do something more if someone actually comes to the office and now you've suspected that someone actually has COVID-19. And again, unfortunately, also to kind of echo what Lisa said, unfortunately, there really is a patchwork of laws right now that everyone has to comply with, whether it's cleaning or other things. But the most important thing, and because the guidance keeps evolving, definitely in terms of cleaning, you're definitely going to want to be checking out the CDC guidance and the OSHA guidance, which, like I just said, is evolving, and you're going to want to check that out. Also, because there's a patchwork of laws right now that everyone has to kind of be staying up on and they don't even know where to start, there are some helpful checklists out there that are circulating. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to give any checklist that I've found to be actually a very good comprehensive checklist, that if you just wanted to kind of take a look at yourself and go through and think if you guys have everything, you know, up to snuff, it's a good starting point.
The other thing that I know that a lot of folks have been doing is putting reminder signage up. So for instance, in their, in terms of what are the rules of this particular office, whether it's only so many people in a particular area, like a coffee area, or even, you know, depending on where your copiers are, how many people can be there at one point, and reminders about what they want to have done in between people. So maybe it's when you're using a copier, you have a sanitation, like a disinfectant spray or something like that, that you spray on the equipment after you use it. So you can have local rules in terms of that particular company, and showing any government inspector come in that you're doing best case of keeping both your employees safe and meeting the government requirements.
There is someone in the chat, Michael, who is asking if the attorneys could speak to the privacy laws, given the testing that will likely ramp up for employees and visitors as the reopening becomes more robust.
Sure. So the privacy concerns, and you know, Lisa can chime in as well, are there. So a lot of employers are going to probably even possibly be using self-certifications or other documents if they don't want to do testing on site, because that can be rather cumbersome. But it's very important that you keep any medical information separate from all other personnel records. So you have to maintain them, but they have to be kept apart. And the other really important thing that you have to remember is you can't disclose anyone's name. So if someone comes in and they have COVID, you know, if you suspect that they have COVID-19 and you're thinking, I want to protect my other employees, the best way to do that is to alert the other employees that they might have been exposed by talking to that person and figuring out who they were close to. But you cannot tell other people, you know, we just sent Michael, whoever, home because we think that he has COVID-19. So that's definitely the same thing with vendors, customers. If you want to protect them, the best thing is to ask Mike, for instance, you know, who he had been in touch with within the last, you know, several days, and get that list and notify them of a potential exposure. But there are definitely private concerns. You have to keep that any medical information separate. You also have to remember that this is a big exception to the ADA, which would normally not allow any of these types of medical inquiries at all. So that's another law that you have to be cognizant of. And at some point, you're going to have to stop these inquiries. Okay, we're not there yet, but you just have to remember that this is an exception, and anything that you're asking in terms of these medical inquiries, it has to solely be related to COVID-19, only those types of symptoms. So if you are start going broader than that, you are going to run afoul of the ADA.
And I guess the other question is, if you have somebody like that, do you have to notify medical authorities?
Yes, in terms of once you've got someone who's positive, there is an obligation to report it to the State Department of Health, and then they will give you guidelines for your business of specifically what you need to do in terms of contact tracing and notifying other people. So that's the exception to keeping, you know, the person's name confidential and all that. There is that requirement. I agree with everything Karen said in terms of the other confidentiality issues.
Okay. Rich, you have another question?
Let me unmute him.
So at the moment, the employer is supposed to test themselves. They're supposed to test every one of their employees on a daily basis. Is that the current guidelines?
Or, oh,
There's not a requirement to specifically test employees every day. The requirement is that you have to be doing what you can to minimize the spread of COVID-19. And you are allowed by the EEOC right now to take people's temperatures and ask the questions about all the symptoms, because COVID-19 is considered a pandemic and, you know, possibly causing death. So there is an allowance for it right now. There is not an actual requirement that you have to do it. However, I think it is going to become a common expectation that this is a practice, that you are making an assessment, and this is the way you are preventing people from coming into the workplace sick. So, you know, as a practical matter, I think that you're going to have to do something. So sometimes, in addition to just taking temperature checks or assessing people's symptoms at the door, businesses are sending out an email at the end of every night. Who were you in contact with today? All day long, so that if someone is ultimately determined to be positive later, they've already got the list of people, and surveying people the night before they come in. So there's automated ways to do this that are not, you know, only about doing it in person. But I mean, I think this is something that, as a practical matter, most businesses are going to have to be doing.
Wow.
Well, and I also think that there are, what folks have also done is that they've purchased a one of those thermometers that you hold up to your forehead, and if you've got 100-degree temperature, you don't go home. You don't come to the office. But also, in terms of what Lisa had said, I've also seen folks have a checklist at the start of the day that they have to fill out. You know, have you been in contact with anybody in the last 24 hours that you know of? So you've done you've done the best you can. And, but my intuitive feeling is that part of this is based upon who you want to come in and when you want them to come in. You don't necessarily have to have everybody come in, but if you've done your best, you know, in terms of tried to do best practices in terms of what the guidance is, both locally and from the state, then in my mind, there's no reason why you can't come to the office. And we know we're going to have a certain percentage of workers who are fearful of coming to the office. And my thought is that you have conversations with those folks individually and ask them what they're afraid of. And if it makes sense for you to make an accommodation within the workplace to allay those fears, fine. But if not, or they will continue to work at home if that's feasible. If it's not feasible, now there's guidance about, okay, you can give them the choice of either coming in with whatever's reasonable, or B, you have grounds in which to consider that they can't be an effective employee going forward.
Okay, so just as a heads up, I did drop a link in the chat for how to mitigate risk, which Karen presented. Thanks, Karen, that was fun. But it does answer a lot of questions on, you know, what you can do in order to make your workplace safe to return to work. I see that Katie Kryten raised her hand.
Great.
Hold on one moment, takes a second. There we go.
Hi, I'm Katie Crichton. I have a background in organizational development and specialize in employee engagement. So to just tag on to that about the fearful employees, I find also they're not always comfortable to come to you with their fears and concerns. So I think the more you can involve and incorporate your employees in the planning process, whether it's communicating all of these challenges that we've just been talking about and everything you're doing to take it into account, that goes a long way. Just them understanding that you do care and you're evaluating and you're trying to do what's best for them, because they won't always come to you and be honest about what's bothering them. A lot of times they feel silly for feeling that way.
Karen, you had a point that you wanted to make?
I think it's okay. We might have been past it now. It's okay.
Okay, great. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Or issues that you're faced with?
I see Joel raised his hand. Hold on one moment, Joel.
I was just going to add on to what Katie was saying as a real example. We've been communicating with the team, you know, fortunately enough that we're digital, so we could all kind of keep running. But we've been communicating to the team as best as possible, keeping those open conversations, how to get back to work, how to, you know, how things might look. It's a lot unknown, but, you know, to Katie's point, just having that conversation and keeping everybody involved, I think has kind of helped quell some of those concerns, help bring people, you know, a part of it. And I think that's something to really consider. It's definitely been seeming to work very well for our crew. That's it.
And the other thing is where you guys are all going, and Joel, you just mentioned, on top of it is also re-looking at your structure and the way your business is operating. What's the most efficient way going forward for you, especially because your market's changed?
Yeah, and Katie, go ahead.
Well, I was actually going to ask on that note. We keep hearing about the second wave, and this isn't the end, and it can happen again. Are people including those considerations as they develop their reopening plans, how they would transition back if it were to happen again, and how they would mitigate the weaknesses that this is exposed in their organizations?
You know, that's a great topic, and I'm thinking that could be an area that we use as a future topic if we see it coming about. You know, as we see the statistics reemerge toward the latter part of the year. One of the things that I've heard is that some of the colleges in some states are actually considering suspending in-person classes after Thanksgiving because of the concerns about a resurgence of COVID plus normal influenza. So they're going to go back to virtual. So part of that might be, Katie, from your perspective, saying, okay, if we had to do it again, what would we do better? What could we plan for ahead of time to do better if that were to happen? We've all had to do what we're doing now on the fly. And there's lessons learned from everything that each of us has had to go through. And so I think that there's merit in rethinking that later on, but I think the right time to do that is probably as we start seeing the emergence of a potential for reinfecting. Katie?
Although I have seen some businesses react by creating new revenue streams and coming up with different ways to operate. And I think part of why it was so challenging in the beginning is we didn't get ahead of it on the planning. So coming up with new innovative ways to operate regardless of the scenario we're in, I don't know that it's a bad idea to do in general.
And I would agree with that. And we're actually going to be, we have identified a topic for next time, which will tie back into that. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. Karen, you have some thoughts?
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to kind of agree too that I think kind of proactively planning now and businesses kind of figuring out what could be the potential ways that we're going to be having to deal with this for the next bit of time. Everyone's kind of excited right now about the easing of the restrictions and getting back to the workplace, which is great, but I think everyone is expecting some things to be happening in the fall. And so I think it's good for businesses to plan out and assume that this might be a little bit of a longer slog, and kind of exactly as you and Katie were just both discussing, thinking about different revenue streams, or how do we kind of continue to operate if more people have to continue to stay from home than we anticipated, or more people are going to be wanting to work from home than we had before. So how are we going to plan for that? And I think that is good to have in the back of our minds as we reopen.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, Karen, because one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking, and I'd love to get your thoughts and also Lisa's, is very frequently you folks have people come to your offices, clients. What are you guys going to do to reopen? You can't continue to only operate virtually.
Yeah, I mean, and we have the issue too of depositions and courts now kind of trying to figure out how they're doing more and more things virtually, which is what's happening. Depositions have been one of the harder things, but even that's now rolling forward. But I still think for some amount of time, we're going to be trying to do things virtually to the extent possible. And then I think it is going to be a slow kind of reopening. And I think what we're going to be doing in our office is likely going to have people rotating in and out of the office so that it's not like your full staff is there in the beginning. So we'll have days on and days off.
And Lisa, what about you?
We're a much smaller firm, so we are not dealing with, tons of employees that have to come back. We are not planning an opening date right now. It's really not necessary. We never stopped working. It's been pretty seamless, and until we feel that there is a need to change that, we are not. So, unfortunately, we're paying for rent that we're not using right now. But, we're just continuing to work from home until we feel that it makes sense to do otherwise. And I mean, for my business, that's really what makes the most sense right now.
And Michelle, what are you doing? Because I know your type of business, you have people come and drop off stuff and all of that kind of stuff for printing and the other services that you render.
Let me unmute her. Michelle, can you unmute? She might have herself muted.
Okay.
But I think, Allan, and that's what everybody's just hitting on, you got to look long term and to what could happen in the future. That's part of business planning anyway. So this is a new anomaly that has to be put into their overall business planning of how would you handle having to be removed from your office, quote unquote, and do you need that type of, and what's your re-engineering structure? So all those type of components go into this thing, and there's a bunch of links that people I know were asking. I saw it on the chat, one of which is the Chamber's link for the COVID ones coming out, announcements out of Trenton, and everything else are excellent. I would highly recommend people check those out. Same thing when we use the same thing in our town is the daily update that's coming out of Trenton for all the activities. With how fluid this is, I highly recommend you take a peek at that once in a while because it is constantly changing, and there's no planned objectives that any of us can can figure out of what's coming out of Trenton each day. So you really have to pay attention to that look because it changes.
So one of the things that I think is going to happen in the very near future is the ability for us to be able to utilize restaurants and other than takeout. And in that particular context, what I think we're going to see is outdoor dining will be allowed probably in the next couple of weeks, and which will be helpful to restaurants. But there are restaurants that don't necessarily have an outdoor platform that they can use. And so part of it may be that they're going to start thinking, they need to think about how to adapt to utilizing parking lots and stuff like that on a temporary basis until they're allowed to put people into their facilities. I saw in one.
Allan, that's a local regulation. That's where I'm urging folks to go to their local towns to make sure that they can do that. That's one of the things that we're doing in Mount Olive is waiving that regulation, and but they have to apply for a code. We're not charging for it, so that both the police and the health department can approve how they're laying it out in the parking lot. Because
Cool.
There's a safety factor that a car doesn't come whipping through.
Obviously, sure. And also they probably have to get some kind of discussions with their the owner of the property where they have the restaurant.
Yeah, all three of those have to be involved in that decision process. And that's one of the things that we put together in the reopening plan with our businesses in town, the restaurants, so that they can do that in a approvable manner that's safe.
So I see that Betty Gandelman is on the call also. Betty, how are you guys? I know you guys hopefully can get to a certain extent operate remotely, but I know you have a staff of folks who in your offices.
Right. I think the challenge we have is there isn't enough specificity to the guidelines yet. And so you have people that are just kind of, it's kind of wishful thinking. They figure that we can open, and they're making up rules as kind of on a collective basis, which is creating a fair amount of concern and fear for some of the employees. And so there's really a need for some real direction that can come from whether it's the county or the state that says this is what you need to do, because there are employees that are just fearful of verbalizing their concerns, and yet they are letting you know in one way or another that they have the concerns. And I see this with a lot of small, mid-sized companies. The entrepreneurs have this urge to reopen and are just not getting the guidance that they need or that their employees need.
Now, of the other folks who are on the call, I'm just curious, what we want to make sure of is that everybody's participating. And I appreciate everybody who has participated to this point, but welcome the opportunity for other folks to share their thoughts and their experiences. And by the way, their concerns about how it can affect them personally or them from a business perspective, so that we can kind of get a better sense from everybody about both how we can help you in this call, but potentially identifying other areas that might be topics for future calls. So I'm going to go around the folks who I see are on the call, and I'm going to ask you specifically. And I'm going to start with Dave LaBush.
Oh, there we go.
You want to unmute you? Great, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, good morning. As part of Midtown Commercial, we do facilities management, which also includes cleaning. So we have a cleaning service, F&J Associates, and they have been already out cleaning places to CDC guidelines and protocols. So happy to, set up the conversation. So anyone in the chamber that wants to, talk, get them into your space, do a review of things you can do, what they can do. Happy to facilitate that. Happy to help out the chamber members. They were actually having a big discussion in our office yesterday about some of the different cleaning stuff, cleaning products, things to do, things not to do, what order to do them in, how to do them in. So happy to help out. My office never closed. We've been open the whole time. Our issues have been, state and county stuff that's been closed, so making it difficult to do some business, or people that we need to work with have been closed. So in terms of helping people get open and what that new thing is going to look like, is, we have a cleaning service and they're already out and cleaning. So if I can help anybody, I think I put all the contact information in the chat, but feel free to reach out to me.
Great. And, toward that end, either Lisa or Karen, have you seen any guidance in terms of the county opening up some of its own facilities or specific towns in terms of their offices and things of that nature? Are they still waiting for government, or are they actually operating when you need to reach out to them on a local level?
Allan, I just want to let you know that it's 8:55. So.
Great. Okay, cool.
Okay, wanted to give you a time check.
Thank you.
I'm not really following, that specific issue of what the localities are doing in terms of their own employees.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anything either about localities, either about what they're doing. So I'm not sure, but my guess is, at this point, they're just following the governor's guidance. And, the governor hasn't given everyone, the green light to reopen yet.
Okay, great. And so we're getting a little bit short on time, because the next thing that we're going to be talking about is going to be, as we've gone through the Q&A, we're going to get to the selection of topics for the next meeting. And one of the things that has popped up on this particular call that we had already thought about, which was, okay, now that you are reopened, how are you going to reopen more fully? So in other words, there are folks who are doing business now, okay? And it goes back to something that Katie said earlier. It's, okay, now how do we deal with reopening more fully? And that's going to be a gradual, we've had some ideas on this particular call regarding that. But in addition to that, I do believe that it's about how we're going to adjust to the new normal, both from an interim perspective and from a permanent perspective. So this ties back into things we need to do from a marketing and a whole bunch of other perspectives. So one of the things that I would like to use that as a basis for the next discussion, and we'll put that further out. I'd like to explore that further. But in addition to that, I'd like to have folks submit to us some particular topic area that they look at from a business strategy or want guidance on specific tactics regarding their business. Now, I'm not focused as much in this particular forum on sales and marketing. It's a component, but also from the perspective of operational or finance or human resources. Those issues seem to have come up to a lot of folks who are trying to build their organizations and need to figure out how to lead those organizations. And so part of what we want to do with this forum is really use this as a brainstorming session, or with specific guest speakers in future meetings, to now give a point of view and provide the basis for a roundtable discussion that would be subsequent to the presentation they want to make. So I welcome you submitting those. In addition to that, we've put together a document that I'm going to put up on the screen now, which is something that I'm going to reshare that because it's something that we think can be a help to any organization about what are the considerations you need to think about. In some cases, it's, you know, we've talked about a lot of those, the legal aspects and things of that nature. But I think one of the real keys to this is the first part. It's communication with your employees, your customers, any signage changes you need to make, things of that nature. And as Allan Rasberger said, there are physical modifications he had to do. There are also, we've talked about the policies and procedures, the things you need to do from a human resource standpoint, changes you may have to do to your technology. We've talked about the workspace cleaning. What do you need to do to change your insurance coverages? Obviously, we've talked about the monitoring of government relations, regulations, I should say, the accounting and finance issues for anybody who's applied for the government offered financial assistance and how you need to account for that. Any changes you need to make in your job functions, because you have to respond to either creating new job functions for people who have to now worry about health concerns for if you have an office manager, now you're adding that to their responsibilities. And then, as we've talked earlier about the timing of bringing folks back. So I offer this checklist to everybody. And if you're interested in just using this as just a thought-provoking checklist that you can use internally, just feel free to reach out to us, and we'll certainly provide that to you at the conclusion of this call. Now, getting back to our agenda, and what we're now focusing in on is, okay, the next phase, which is, okay, leads and needs.
Yes. Allan, just as a heads up, I dropped our emails in the chat, so if anyone has any suggestions for topics or what you want to see from this group, please reach out to us. Allan, I found that the best, again, I'll just go down the line if that's okay.
Yeah,
if you haven't participated in Leads and Needs before, we've been extending our committee meetings by about a half an hour at the end, just to give everyone a chance of going down the line, giving your 60-second introduction, who you are, what your company is. Try to be specific about what leads you could possibly offer to others and what you need from others. Again, it's better to be specific instead of saying something like, oh, I need clients, because I think we all do. So I'm going to, Allan, if it's okay, go down the line and just unmute as I see in the order on my screen.
Great.
And the first person I see is Paul. So Paul, hold on one moment.
Hi everyone, Paul Boudreau. I'm with PPAC Gladstone Bank. We've been quite busy with the PPP program in the last 2 months or so. My office is on South Street in Morristown. Although our lobbies are closed right now, we're still very much in business. And if there's anything I can do for you in terms of your business going forward, business loans, setting up your operating accounts for your business, it's been kind of interesting to see the changes we've seen in the last 2 or 3 months. And we found that a lot of people were frustrated with their larger banks, and we've actually grown our business considerably in the last 60 to 90 days. So if I can help you from the standpoint of any of your banking or investment needs, please think of us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul. And as a reminder to everyone, I just want to let you know, if I understand people have other meetings to get to, but if it's possible, if you want to introduce yourselves, try to stick around for everyone's introduction. That way we're not just left with one person at the end. So next person I see up is Rich.
Morning, my name is Rich Hauser, and the name of my company is Raw CFO, Controller, and Bookkeeping. We are a fractional or an outsourced accounting department for our clients. We are not a CPA firm. So that means we don't do tax returns and audits. It's strictly the internal accounting function. My big need is we need to hire 2 staff accountants / full charge bookkeepers. And we have been struggling for months to try to find the right people. We have an awful lot going on. A lot of that is being driven by the PPP programs, but we also have many opportunities. And fortunately or unfortunately, I've actually had to delay some new business opportunities just because we don't have the staffing, and I refuse to do things on a mediocre level. We're about high quality people and high quality products. So we're looking for somebody with an accounting degree, ideally. Could be a business or finance background, but at least 5 years of experience. And again, it's a staff accountant / full charge bookkeeping role. And we're looking for 2 individuals at this point. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rich. And another reminder, make sure to drop your contact information in the chat. That way people can reach out to you. So next up I see is Karen.
Hi everyone, Karen Stringer. So as you all know now, I'm an attorney. I'm a partner at a law firm in Summit, New Jersey. It's called Olander Feldman. Before that, I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I've been helping a lot of companies right now, in particular with compliance issues, whether it's compliance with PPP loans, forgiveness issues, and just certifications that they make in connection with those loans. And also, as we've been discussing today, making sure that companies are doing what they need to do to comply with various employment laws and state and local laws that are being set out. So I do a bunch of things, but I have to say right now, that's how I'm feeling that I can help most of my clients in those areas.
Thank you very much. So next up, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy McNeil from Creative Pixels Marketing. I do digital marketing and videos to help you and your company get found online. Since I've always been doing a lot of my work remotely and online, and I work with people who work remotely, the impact hasn't been to my business so much as conversations I've been having with clients about how to pivot their business and their marketing. So I'm dealing with these questions that were discussed today in relation to what my clients' needs are. At this point, you know, the perfect client for me is always a small to medium business that needs to get found online, and needs someone who can look at all their marketing, all that's being done, and figure out ways to pivot it in this digital environment, and utilizing video as part of that component as well.
Okay, thanks so much. Next up, Mark Trapp.
Okay, how's everybody doing this morning? I'm half of the Terry and Mark team. We work with Primerica Financial Service Company. But my big ask right now is that we are hosting a Art of Wow Zoom webinar on 6/9 at 4 o'clock by invitation, obviously. But learning step-by-step processes that can turn your clients into your biggest fans and create a deeper connection with your clients to discover the key opportunities to deliver wow experiences to keep and grow your client base on what matters to them right now. And obviously having a clean office and things of that nature are very important to everybody. But that's what I got for you right now. But our business is still going strong because we can do basically 100% of our stuff virtually anyhow. So that's not really that much of a problem coming in contact with people, except for, you know, to hand over, you know, a cash check and stuff like that. But other than that, everything's going quite well up here in Northwest Jersey.
All right, thank you. I'm also in Northwest Jersey, up in Sussex County, so nice to hear other people up here. All right, next up, Lisa.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Lisa Freed-Gruden. I'm an employment attorney with the law firm of Myers Freed-Gruden. When we are normally physically open, we're in Parsippany. We are working virtually and have been since March. And I'm really focused right now on providing, you know, customized practical solutions that work for a particular business as you're dealing with all the challenges that are associated with COVID-19. And I've got a range of clients from businesses that are essential that have not closed at all, some that have had to lay off their entire staffs, others that have people working at home. And, you know, depending on the situation you're in, there's different questions and issues that arise. So it's really been, you know, a customized approach to make sure that I'm serving what the individual business needs and just dealing with tons of questions and confusion about the constantly changing requirements and trying to keep people calm, sane, and educated.
All right, thank you. All right, next up is Joel.
Sweet. Well, good morning, everybody. Glad to have been able to participate with this group. It was good. It was good to hear some, you know, thoughts and ideas. Part of Kraus Marketing, we're a full service agency. We build websites and drive traffic to it. We build websites and drive traffic to them. I am proud to say we have 20 plus people all in full-time employment status working like crazy because it is an incredible time to get in front of clientele. There is no other time like this. People are pinned to their computers, their phones, their tablets, and everything. If I am always looking for people in manufacturing, if you know somebody that has a product that they don't have online or they're unable to sell online properly, that would be an excellent referral for me. So Joel Kraus, Kraus Marketing, stay healthy, everybody. Stay positive, and we'll do this together. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joel. Up next, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Kryten of Kryten Consulting. I have a background implementing transformative strategic initiatives at a Fortune 50 company and for the FBI. I switched because my passion is small businesses and nonprofits, so I've been excited to help them tackle their challenges. There's a lot of them right now. I offer personalized services that include everything from a DIY toolkit, right, specifically for returning to work and engaging your employees after a crisis, very timely right now, that walks business professionals through the process. It has sample communications and sample surveys that they can send out if they just want a starting point. I also include virtual strategic sessions. In an hour, we can tackle challenges and come up with an action plan that you can run with yourself, or full consulting project support if you need additional arms and legs. Right now, I'd like to say I'm offering 50% off all products and services on my website just because there's such need out there. I'm excited to help. So any organizations looking to engage employees and customers in new ways during this challenging time, that's the kind of challenge that's right up my alley. So,
fantastic, thank you. Up next, Jeff, let me unmute you.
Oh. Okay, there we go. Good morning, I'm Jeff Scotti. My company is Scott Eye Design. We work with websites. We design, develop, maintain, host, and market individual websites. This whole COVID-19 has actually been very good for our business. We've spent a lot of time redoing folks' websites, and our e-commerce businesses have really gone crazy. We do everything from good-sized retail businesses to helping restaurants collect payments online so that people can just drive up and get the food. So that's where we are right now. So thank you very much. It was very interesting this morning, and I hope to see you again soon.
All right, thank you so much. Betty.
Thank you. I'm Betty Gandelman with RAI Group, and we are specialty lenders that can provide alternative lending if your bank is not in a position to help you. And what we're finding in this COVID environment, that there are a number of new businesses that have need for financing, and they don't have the banking relationships in place to get that type of funding. And in many cases, companies that would normally turn to equity as a way to grow their business are finding those opportunities not available. So a company for us that would be a good prospect with someone that has good margins, has assets that we can look to as a secondary source of repayment, and is looking for a lending partner that will take the time to really understand their business and move very quickly. So.
All right, thank you so much. Michelle?
Hello, I'm Michelle Patterson. I'm with Alpha Graphics Parsippany. We're a printing company. We never closed, even though we did close our doors to foot traffic, but we never closed. We had been printing and helping companies either let everybody know that they were remaining open or what their current services were. For example, restaurants that were doing delivery and whatnot, and along those lines. Needs that we would have right now are companies, and it could be any size, small, mid, large, that are in the process of reopening, bringing back their full staff so that we can help them let everyone know how to come back. So for example, signage letting you know where to park, you know, which entrance to go through, forms if they needed to be filled out that other than online, which I know are being sent out the night before, but some of our companies actually have in compliance that they want a printed copy. So they're also having stuff done when they get into the office. Guidelines for the bathrooms as far as hand washing and CDC requirements and that kind of thing. So there you go. This was great today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, Megan, I'll skip you for now. And Michael.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, terrific. Thanks for setting this up. The call was really great. So I'm Michael Warwick. I run Warwick Associates LLC, the Human Capital Advisory. 30 years of experience as an IO psychologist, as an industrial organizational psychologist. Some of my areas probably overlap with Katie. I spend a lot of time doing work in the talent management space, so selection and development and learning, leadership development, performance management, succession planning, et cetera, as well as a lot of measurement work. One of the things that we're doing recently is helping organizations kind of assess how their employees are feeling, how they're handling the pandemic, all the stuff that we're talking about. So if anybody's interested in hearing about that, I can certainly talk to you about that. The sweet spot for me is with smaller to mid-sized companies who maybe don't have a fully developed HR infrastructure and are looking to fill in some cracks or looking for some guidance. That's kind of the sweet spot for the firm. So one last thing, I've been doing a lot of looking into and researching and writing on this whole future of work topic and leveraging on-demand workers and sort of working with a blended workforce and how managers can kind of make that happen. I have a feeling that this is going to get a little accelerated as we move through the next few months and reopen. As I mentioned in the chat box, I think that this has sort of given organizations an opportunity to really take a good hard look at how they operate, how they get things done. Are there other ways to leverage other resources in order to deliver services and develop products, et cetera? So I do think that there's something there. I do have a tool called the Future of Work Audit if people are interested in sort of hearing about that as well. So anyway, that's it. I appreciate the time. And again, thanks for running the session. It was great.
All right, thank you, Michael. So Allan, Greg, Megan, any comments or remarks before we close up?
Just for me, I just want to thank everybody for their input and time today, and also for the opportunity to work with Allan on pulling these type of things together. And I do urge you to reach out to your local administration. I've been a councilman in town. We're working with our businesses. Your town should also. So I encourage you to reach out to that as well as your experts in the area. My own expertise is actually, my brand's all about putting the right people together. And Allan and I have been working together in conjunction as both business advisors for years. And I highly recommend you don't consider folks an obstruction, they could actually be a great partner, especially in times of stress like this. So don't be afraid to reach out to folks.
Okay.
So I just want to thank Allan and Greg and everyone for participating today. Please like us on Facebook and LinkedIn. You are our biggest influencers, and we are entirely a virtual chamber now. So thank you all for your active participation, and please share a post, let people know about the chamber and how we can help your business during this challenging time. Thank you, everyone.